Hey guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe and then hit the bell too to get notified when we put out a new video. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a face mask from a 3D print with FDA compliant materials. We partnered with Alex from drifting.com and he sent us these awesome, high quality 3D prints that we'll be using as our masters. When you're molding from a 3D print, it's important to fill in any gaps and to seal things up really well. If we don't, then we won't have a clean mold and the 3D print could get damaged in the process. Now I'm using a little CA glue and a brush to fill in some of those gaps and to smooth things over. This way the silicone won't get into the grooves and mess up our mold. It can be a tedious process, but it's totally worth it. Now we're ready to make our mold. I like using a piece of glass as my base because it's reusable and it saves me time. I've got this pre-made melamine box that'll work as well, but it's more space than we really need. So I'm going to use some corrugated plastic to block things off and to save some silicone. A quick test fit to make sure that the mask and the insert fit well, and it's time for some hot glue. Since I'm using these inserts, I have a little more gluing to do than normal, but this will save a silicone and some headaches down the road. A couple of dots of hot glue on the face mask and the insert to make sure they don't float in our mold, and we're ready to start mixing up our silicone. I'm going to use our Plat 10 silicone here because it's our most flexible at only 10 on the shore scale. Now Plat 10, you actually measure out equal parts by weight, so you get a gram scale or something to do that measurement. You can see though, just from the edge of the bucket, that it's going to take about 2 liters worth of silicone. I'm doing a one-piece mold for this face mask to keep things simple, and Plat 10 is going to make that possible. Since we're going to be using a pressure pot for our casting, I did quickly degas the silicone as well. That's a key step if you're going to be using pressure during casting, you need to degas your silicone. Now we're ready to pour. Always pick the lowest spot, not directly on the part to pour. This helps eliminate the potential of trapping air. Although our Plat 10 will release air very well naturally if we did get a couple bubbles introduced during pouring. Now I let this set overnight and we're ready to demold our parts. Using the glass and the corrugated plastic, it pays off here. We've got 2 molds that pop out super easily. For each one of these molds, we want to cut off any silicone that's gotten underneath our parts. I'll take an X-Acto knife and really take my time going around these edges. Clean cuts here means clean castings later. We're done cutting and it's time to get these 3D prints out of the molds. This is where the Plat 10 really shines. Since it's very flexible, we can get the face mask out with just a little bit of patience. We've got 2 clean molds and we're ready to cast. I did decide to cut a straight line halfway down the face mask on the bottom just to make demolding a little bit easier. A couple rubber bands around the mold and we're set. We want this face mask to be made out of completely FDA compliant materials, so we're going to use our amazing clear cast epoxy. You need around 6 ounces here for this whole thing, but I mixed up just a little more so you could see things easier. Mix things well, scrape the sides of the bucket, make sure there are no swirls and things are consistently clear. Adding color is up to you. I added some opaque white so that the mask wasn't clear, and then some yellow and orange just for fun. This is completely up to you. Once we're all mixed up, it's time to pour into our molds. I pour a little bit at a time so that the epoxy actually can work its way down to the bottom of the mold. This will release a little bit of air as it makes its way down, so it's a good thing to take your time here. Now to get a clean flat surface, I'm going to take the stir stick that we used, lay it against our mold, and then just scrape away the excess. We've poured all of our epoxy and it's time to get these guys into the pressure pot to remove all the air and give us a nice clean casting. I'll take things up to about 40-45 psi and then let that sit overnight. The next day, we're ready to demold our FDA compliant parts. We'll remove our rubber bands and any big flashing real fast before we start demolding. These parts in particular are pretty thin, so we'll want to be smart about how we get these out of the molds. Gently pull the silicone away from the part on the outside edge and on the inside edges to release the piece. We don't want to deform or break these parts we've worked so hard for. Patience is the name of the game here. A quick review, and things are looking clean and consistent throughout. All the work we did preparing our masters at the beginning pays off with these beautiful castings. Any slight flashing on the parts, that can be cleaned up pretty easily with an X-Acto knife. Now, a key part of a safe face mask is to have an airtight seal around the edge. That's what we're going to use our FDA compliant mold putty to make a custom gasket. I'll take equal parts of side A and side B and then mix them together quickly. Rolling the putty into a ball and then into a long spaghetti shape. Now, using the mask as reference, I'll roughly shape the putty and then transfer it onto the mask. Here I'm just working the putty around the edge and pressing it against the mask gently to make sure it's secure and not too thin anywhere. I'll press the hardest at the lowest point the putty meets the mask to make sure it's airtight. Mold putty cures in about 20 minutes, so while that's curing, I'll go ahead and use some shop towels and our insert to make our filter. We'll link to the article that explains why we're using shop towels in the description. We're going to need some straps on our face mask. To make sure that I can get that threaded through our mask, I'll have to cut away a little bit of this cured mold putty. Now, I've got some elastic bands from an old face mask that has already been used and seen the end of its life. That'll work perfectly, but if you don't have that, rubber bands would work as well. All that's left is some quick assembly. I'll put the shop towels down over the opening and then press the insert into them to pressure fit things together. And there we have it, a reusable face mask made with FDA compliant materials to keep you and others safe during the season. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. We're here to help in any way that we can.